Coming up next on Hooten's Arkansas football, highlights from the second round of the high school playoffs, including a double-A dandy from South Arkansas between the Danville Little Johns and the Hampton Bulldogs. Searcy headed south too in the second round, and we'll show you how the Lions managed a trip to Monticello for a second straight year. And the defending state champs Cabot Panthers played host to the second best team from the West, Bentonville. Highlights of those games and many more, plus the latest Hooten's rankings, and we'll head to Hope, where a guy named DD makes A's and B's and is this week's Scholar Athlete of the Week. It's all straight ahead in the next 30 minutes on Hooten's Arkansas football.
You make sure you're physical.
Well, I'm riding on the ball game. Get that blood in your eyes and you play with heart.
Hello and welcome to Hooten's Arkansas football. We're down to the Final Four in Class 5A and 4A and the Elite 8 in AAA and AA, and we'll show you how the teams advance to the semifinal and quarterfinal rounds in the playoffs. Coming up in the next 30 minutes on Hooten's Arkansas football, we have highlights, of course, the latest Hooten's rankings, our Scholar Athlete, and much more. It's all coming up in the next 30 minutes. We're glad you're with us, and we'll get started with a look at last night's Class 5A playoff games coming up next on Hooten's Arkansas football.
Hooten's Arkansas. Now, more of Hooten's Arkansas football, brought to you by Lander.
That's right, Mama. El Dorado was in the house and looking for revenge last night at Russellville. The Cyclones won just 3 games last season, but made the playoffs and then shocked the state with its first-round win at El Dorado. Last night, the roles were reversed a bit. Russellville riding a 10-game winning streak and the favorite, but El Dorado had a little trouble running the ball against Russellville. Brandon Jamerson right up the middle, and then the pass to Curtis Clark, who makes a great catch and keeps his feet in bounds. El Dorado led 7-0. Russellville responded immediately, though. Quarterback Landon Leach passing to super sophomore Tracy Steiger over the middle, and then Leach rolls right, finds Kevin Elliott for the touchdown. Elliott's TD tied it at 7, just 7 minutes into the game. El Dorado would retake the lead on its next possession with Jamerson pulling his way through traffic and sprinting to the end zone. Jamerson is just a junior, but he finished the night with a phenomenal 39 carries for 245 yards. And the Wildcats avenged last year's loss with senior kicker Chris Hollinsworth. He was perfect on extra points and nailed a 35-yard field goal in the final seconds to win. Final score, El Dorado 24, Russellville 21. The best quarterback left in the playoffs is this guy, Alan Schlagenhoff from Bentonville. He passed for 251 yards last night at Cabot, and the Tigers made it look easy on their first series, driving 79 yards on the defending state champion Panthers. Schlagenhoff completed 4 or 5 passes on the drive, including the big gainer to Drew Denny and then the touchdown toss to Challen Aswell, and Bentonville led 7-0. A little bit later, Aswell fumbled a punt on his own 11-yard line, but Cabot couldn't score. In fact, the Panthers only managed 3 first downs in the first half, but they only needed 1 big play from sophomore Chris Robertson to tie it up. Robertson worked hard to get loose and then runs as fast as he can, and it would be just fast enough to cross the goal line, and that made it 7-7. Bentonville had another chance to score just before halftime, but Cabot's defense turned the Tigers away on 4th and goal from the 1-foot line on the final play of the first half. Schlagenhoff scored on a 1-yard sneak in the third quarter to give Bentonville a 14-7 lead, and then would score again on a 28-yard run with less than a minute left in the game to set the final margin. Final score, Bentonville 21, Cabot 7. Bentonville is not the only team from the West headed to the semifinals. The Tigers will be joined by Fort Smith Southside in the Final Four. Last night, the Rebels became the 3rd team from the West to beat Conway this season. Rebel running back Ortiz Banks has been slowed by an ankle injury since mid-season, but had a good night at Conway. He capped a 67-yard Southside drive with the 1-yard touchdown run. That tied the score at 7 early in the second quarter. Conway would regain the lead, though, as Craig Connor booted a 24-yard field goal to make it 10-7. But then the Rebels would rip out Conway's heart with 2 touchdowns in the final 2.5 minutes of the first half. Sophomore quarterback John Thomas hits Ben Bracken, another sophomore, for an 18-yard gain, and then Banks scored from 6 yards out to make it 14-10. Southside would get the ball back 59 seconds later, and Thomas heaves up a prayer on the final play of the first half, and it comes down in the hands of Banks. Jackpot. Southside led by 18 in the fourth quarter. The final, Rebels 28, Conway 18. Now that Conway is out of the playoffs, Texarkana is the most athletic team left. The Razorbacks won in overtime last night and will play host to Bentonville next week. Texarkana likes to run. Bentonville has the best quarterback left playing in Class 5A. Southside won at El Dorado 32-7 in the season opener. They're headed back to El Dorado next week. Russellville lost last night and has still never made it to the playoff semifinals. Cabot starts the second 5. There's West Memphis and Conway. The Wampus Cats were the only team from the 5A Central to win a playoff game this year, but in their past 11 postseason games, Conway is 4-7. 45 seniors graduated from Springdale last year, but they still won 7 games this season. Coach Gus Malzahn already has the turf up in Springdale that War Memorial Stadium wants. And he also laid a foundation with his spread offense this fall to make the Bulldogs one of the state's most exciting teams to watch next year. Bryant is looking forward to moving out of the South and into the Central Conference. Pine Bluff starts the second 10. Benton and Bryant will still play. It just won't be a conference game. The Saline County Shootout is scheduled for the second week of the season the next 2 years. Northside's 13. There's Lake Hamilton and Central. Mountain Home made the playoffs. So did Mills and McClellan. Van Buren beat Conway earlier this year, but finished near the bottom of the West. And Jacksonville finishes the top 20. Coming up next on Hooten's Arkansas football, highlights and the latest rankings from Class 4A. Plus, we'll take you to Hope for this week's Scholar Athlete of the Week.
I'm Victoria McGee, and I'm Lacey Harris. Stay tuned for more Hooten's Arkansas football.
Finding your way in the wireless world?
More of Hooten's Arkansas football. Brought to you by Sonic.
Well, we need to tell our fans back home that if we don't show up in the next couple of days, that they may want to send help, because we're right amongst the Monticello Billies up here, and me and Rick are not known for being unbiased.
That's the Searcy Lion broadcast team on KBGR, with Sonic's Greg Rowden on play-by-play and color man Rick Sammons. And speaking of burgers, few teams were hotter than the Lions, who had won 6 in a row entering last night's second-round game at Monticello. The Lions upset Monticello in the first round last year and struck a blow early, recovering the opening kickoff. That sets up Searcy's best weapon in the first quarter, kicker Nathan Rutledge. He nails the 43-yard field goal, and the Lions led 3-0. But here come the Billies behind hard-running standout Delvin Shipp. Teammate Nick Foster gets loose and spins his way all the way down to the 20 on the next play. Then it's Shipp's turn, breaking tackles in the backfield and finding the outside. Then that would set up quarterback John Jackson. He's a Razorback recruit. He gets in from 1 yard out. Jackson's touchdown put the Billies ahead 7-3. On Searcy's next series, the Lions would go to sophomore fullback Weston Dacus. Dacus has had a huge year, and he gets into the secondary, but this drive would stall, and Rutledge would come on again, this time drilling a 52-yard field goal to cut Monticello's lead to 7-6. But Searcy was about to meet the real Lion killers. Monticello's Ryan Shepard, who takes the Jackson toss, cuts back, and picks up some nice blocks. Shepard caught a 71-yard touchdown pass in the third quarter and returned an interception for a score in the fourth. And Jackson was getting it done on both sides of the ball also. He added another short TD in the second quarter, and he takes out Dacus on this sweep play. Searcy's Earl Young took over for the Lions late in the first half with the sweep catch from quarterback Matt Long. That would set up this short touchdown run to cut the lead to 14-12. But the Billies would hold on in the second half, and next week they're headed to win for a big semifinal matchup between the Billies and the Yellow Jackets. Final score from last night in Monticello, Billies 28, Searcy 19. Wynn has lost in overtime the past 2 years in the semifinals on its home field. And that's exactly where the Yellow Jackets will be next Friday, back in Wynn with a semifinal game. When Monticello rolls into town, the Billies may have as many as 4 Division I players on their roster. Stuttgart won at Alma last night, and the Ricebirds are in the semifinals for the first time in almost 2 decades. Earlier this year, Stuttgart beat Watson Chapel 20-19 the 4th week of the regular season. They will meet again next week in Stuttgart. Alma finishes the year at number 5, and Hope is number 6. Hope has a 23-3 record over the past 2 years. Searcy missed a couple of scoring opportunities last night. Rutledge could have kicked the game-winning field goal late, but the Lions went for it on 4th down. Osceola finishes the year at number 8, and there's Greenwood and Arkadelphia. West Helena starts the second 10. Crossit is the only 4A team to beat Monticello this year. The Eagles are followed by Pulaski Robinson, Batesville, and Magnolia. Then it's Newport, Siloam Springs, Morrilton, Harrison, and Malvern.
Now, the Marine Scholar Athlete of the Week.
There's no question D.D. Holyfield takes football seriously, as the Hope senior rushed for almost 2,000 yards and 18 touchdowns last season, but he says football takes a backseat to his work in the classroom, and he has a 3.75 GPA to back that up.
Some students think it's just football, but it's mostly your academics. Your academics come first, and the rest of it will take care of itself.
D.D. Holyfield, a true Marine Scholar Athlete of the Week.
Thanks a lot, Mark, and congratulations to Dee, our Marine Scholar Athlete of the Week. Coming up next, more of Hooten's Arkansas football. Class 3A highlights are straight ahead.
To you by First Security Bank.
And we begin our Class 3A highlights in West Little Rock, where last night Pulaski Academy and the Dardanelle Sand Lizards met. The two teams combined for 21 wins coming into this game. PA jumped out early, though. 14-0 lead for the Bruins. And this is record-setting quarterback Thomas Thrash setting up Quentin Jones on the screen. And look at Q tiptoe down the sidelines all the way to the 4. On the next play, it's Thrash lobbing it to the end zone. That's Blake Miller for the touchdown. Adam Bootenshawn would add the extra point, and PA led 21-0. Pulaski Academy's defense doesn't get a whole lot of credit, but last night they shut down Dardanelle in the first half. Linebackers Scott Landers, Matt Stoltz, and Peter Weiss leading the way. They limited the Sand Lizards to just 247 yards offense last night. Thrash would continue his onslaught in the second half, finding Jones for a 25-yard gain. A few plays later, Thrash connects with Miller for an 18-yard screen pass, and the Bruins took a commanding 27-0 lead. Thrash finished the night with 7 touchdown passes, and the senior has thrown for a national record 77 TDs this year. Final score, PA 49, Dardanelle 14. The Gosnell Pirates made it to the second round of the playoffs for the second straight year, but last night the Pirates had to travel to Jefferson County and visit the high-flying Dollar Wade Cardinals. Early on, Gosnell led 14-6, but Dollar Wade comes back. Quarterback Eddie Ringo throws over the middle to Rodney McGee, and look at Rodney avoiding a tackler, hurdling another one, and weaving his way 68 yards to the end zone. With a couple of minutes left in the half, Gosnell's sophomore quarterback Bo Whitaker tries to make a play, throws it up for grabs in the end zone, and Dollar Wade's Terrence Freeman takes the gift, returns it up to the 31-yard line. Then Ringo beats Dollar Wade's drum, taking the ball in the shotgun formation, rolls right, cuts upfield, then to the left before twisting and turning, right back for a big gain before Gosnell can finally run him out of bounds. 2 plays later, it's Ringo hitting Sahib Rogers for a quick 20-yard gain. Then it's McGee just stretching and making the touchdown grab, and the Cardinals go up 20-14. Dollar Wade would dominate late in the game, setting up a showdown next week at Pulaski Academy. Final score, Cardinals 36, Gosnell 14. And Here is a look at Hooten's Arkansas football Class 3A rankings. Warren just finished flogging Farmington this afternoon down in Warren, so the Lumberjacks are number 1. They're followed by Dollarway and Boonville. The Bearcats blasted Fordyce last night, but Boonville's quarterback, Brett West, may be out for the rest of the season with an injury. Clarksville is number 5. The Panthers had to forfeit their 10 wins this year, but the Panthers were still one of the best in the state. Nashville has won 6 straight games, and Star City is in the quarterfinals for the second time in the past 4 years. Dumas starts the second 10. The Bobcats have won 4 straight games and are headed to Nashville next week. Then it's Yellville Summit, Ashdown, Gosnell, and BB. Truman is 16, followed by Hamburg, Ozark, Prairie Grove, and DeQueen at number 20. Coming up next, more of Hooten's Arkansas football with highlights from 5 of last night's Class 2A playoff games, including number 1, Shiloh Christian against Hazen. Next.
Arkansas Heart Hospital.
And we begin our Class 2A highlights in Des Arc, where last night the Eagles put Mayflower in a pickle early. Joel Buck takes the opening kickoff, goes right up the middle, cuts back out to the left sideline, and look at the Buck run all the way down to the 15-yard line. That sets up Reagan Covington's short touchdown run 4 plays later, and Des Arc was up 7-0 early. Des Arc goes on to maul Mayflower, and the Eagles are headed back to Barton for a showdown next week. Final score, Des Arc 36, Mayflower 7. Staying with the 6AA teams, it was the Hazen Hornets taking their shot at mighty Shiloh Christian last night at the Field of Champions in Springdale. On Hazen's first possession, quarterback Greg Thompson lost it up, and there's Shiloh's Mike Sellers coming down with it, and he takes it back to the 5-yard line. Sellers was getting it done on both sides of the ball for Shiloh. He takes the next play and runs in for the touchdown. Hazen didn't back down, though. That's Brian Aaron decleating Nick Floyd near the goal line. But the night belonged to Shiloh's quarterback, Rhett Lashley. Rhett completed 10 passes for 191 yards and 6 touchdowns, including this one to James Schisler. Lashley now has the national career touchdown record with 168 TD tosses over the past 3 years. Next week, Shiloh plays host to Camden Harmony Grove. Final score, Saints 52, Hazen 14. Defending state champion Risen was at Augusta last night, but it was the Red Devils that looked like a state title contender, making a statement early. Augusta's Brandon Brown breaks free, sprints 35 yards for the touchdown. Just a little bit later, it's Augusta's Antonio Gant going up and over for the touchdown. The Red Devils were up 14-0. Risen tried to respond. Tyrell Johnson breaks free, goes 75 yards to the end zone, but the play would be called back. A holding penalty against Risen. The Wildcats didn't need that. They didn't get much going on offense. Jackie Wynn intercepted 5 passes for Augusta last night, and the Red Devils roll over Risen. Final score, Augusta 34, Risen 14. The Danville Littlejohns surprised everyone a year ago with a trip to the playoff quarterfinals. But just like last year, Danville's season would end on the field of a 7AA East team. Last night in Hampton, it was the Bulldogs advancing to the quarterfinals for the first time in school history. Darrell Smith rushed for 90 yards, including this 35-yard touchdown run for Hampton. And teammate Darrell Ware stepped up on defense, picking off this Danville pass as the Bulldogs rolled. Danville lost at Risen in the quarterfinals last year, and last night at Hampton, the final score, Bulldogs 35, Littlejohns 14.
Augusta had the best athletes. They had better athletes than anybody in our conference. They've got a tremendous football team, guys. They've got a tremendous football team, but we do have that advantage. They got to come to the doghouse and play.
I really don't know anything about Augusta, but we really know a lot about Risen. I believe we should have beat Risen. So if Augusta beats them, I believe it'll be a really tough matchup for us, Hampton versus Augusta.
Camden Harmony Grove may be the hottest team in Class 2A right now, but last night it was Harding Academy that came out smoking. quarterback Caleb Keys hits Bradley Watkins for a short touchdown pass. The Wildcats were up early, but Harmony Grove answers right back with quarterback Ronald Askew hitting Josh Green for a big gain all the way down to the 40-yard line. A couple of plays later, senior Pierre Billingsley would take it 40 yards for the touchdown. Billingsley would finish with 206 yards on the night, and Harmony Grove wins in the second round for the first time in school history. Final score, Harmony Grove 44, Harding Academy 31. And here is a look at Hooten's Arkansas football Class 2A rankings. Shiloh Christian is still untested by a AA team this year. Hampton's only loss this season was to Rison. Rison was ripped by Augusta last night. And next week, it's Augusta at Hampton. Harmony Grove's number 3, and Augusta jumps up 8 spots to number 4. Then it's Carlisle, Junction City, Harding Academy, Rison, Charleston, and Barton, a solid team that's still playing with that sweet draw. Barton plays Desart next week. Mineral Springs is number 11. Then it's Danville, Foreman, Murfreesboro, and Hazen, followed by Desart, Greenland, Mayflower, Marktree, and Bauxite. So Shiloh Christian is still the team to beat in Class 2A, and we will have highlights of the Saints and many more games next week. We hope to see you back here next Saturday night for Hooten's Arkansas football.